BlogTalkRadio, the world's largest online radio network.
Hi, I'm Ben Days, executive producer of 8 and 5, the web series, and you're listening to Genretainment.
And you're listening to episode 9 of Genretainment. We're here to give you news about our favorite genre on TV, movies, and web series, and everything in between. We also have interviews, like this time with filmmaker and award-winning web series creator Blake Calhoun. He talks about his new web series Continuum, his 4th series to date, and his award-winning web series Pink. Now, Calhoun's going to tell us about his current web series Continuum, a sci-fi thriller starring Melanie Merkosky, you probably know from Lonely Girl 15, who I think I may butcher your last name, and a number of other actors from other features that he's worked on, and also from After Judgement, which is another popular web series. We also talk about his Streamy and Webby winning series Pink, which stars actress from V.I.P. and Walker, Texas Ranger. Definitely made an impact when it first premiered. And we're going to talk about everything in between, pretty much. And he gives us tips for web series creators and talks about the future of web series. Now, what you just heard at the beginning was a snippet from the theme song for our web series Reality on Demand. Now, that's a song composed and performed by our friend T. Sean Hardy. Now, you can find our web series at realityondemandseries.com. So we're just going to go ahead and go straight to the interview. So it'll be just one moment here.
I'm Blake Calhoun, the creator of the sci-fi online thriller Continuum.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. And could you give us your background as a filmmaker that kind of led you up to creating your first web series, Pink?
Sure. I actually come from the feature film world. I had done 3 or 4 feature films before I ventured into to create Pink, and that was back in 2007. We're actually in between projects, and I had seen a few web series online, and at the time they were very few and far between. The one that really caught my eye was one called Prom Queen, and I ended up becoming friends with the creators of that show, the guys in a group called Big Fantastic. But at any rate, so we decided to create our own show, and the one thing we wanted to do that really wasn't being done back then, except with like Prom Queen and a few others, was bring our sort of cinematic vision, production value to a cool online story. Because back then in particular, it's totally changed now, production value was not really in the equation. It was more just anyone with a handy cam or a flip camera or what have you doing videos, and that's still prevalent, I guess, today. But that's one thing I think that set us apart back then. But I come from the feature world, and I also do commercials and that kind of thing. But I have enjoyed being in the web series space for the last 5 or so years.
Great. And you had a few acting names in Pink. Did you have a relationship with them prior and ask them to be on the show, or did they have to come and audition? How did that come about?
Well, the lead actors in Pink, I'd almost worked with all of them before in a feature film called Killing Down. It was an action thriller I did back in 2006. Natalie Raitano was the star of the show, along with Sheree Wilson and Matthew Tompkins. And Natalie was from the TV show V.I.P. with Pamela Anderson, and Sheree was best known probably from the TV show Walker, Texas Ranger. I didn't know them from those TV shows. I knew them from the feature film that I had them in. And they loved the idea of being in this new medium, and they agreed to do it for very low wages. We did go through the union, though. We were one of the early shows, and we went through AFTRA. And at the time, there were no new media contracts like there are today, so we were sort of winging it.
And that show did win some awards. Was it the first Streamies that you won an award?
Yes, it sure was. The show did really well, and it opened a lot of doors for me. I won the Streamy for Best Director of a Dramatic Web Series, and the guy who won Best Director for a Comedy Web Series was this guy named Joss Whedon. May have heard of him, I don't know.
Who's that?
Yeah, exactly. So that was pretty cool to be on the same stage as him. We also won a couple Webbies in 2008 and 2009, and some other awards along the way, but it really opened the door to me to create other shows and get representation and that kind of thing. That's how we got to do a show for Warner Brothers a couple years later called Exposed, and we got to work with Mick G and his company Wonderland from our success with Pink.
Great. Was it 3 seasons, or how many seasons did you go on Pink?
We did 3 seasons, and we wanted to do more, but we just sort of ran out of, not ideas, we ran out of financing, more or less, at the time, like a lot of web series, even though Pink did get picked up by a company called Generate, who recently was acquired by Alloy. They do a lot of teen kind of stuff now. They were great. They came on board and really loved the show, and Season 1 was done completely independently, self-financed, and Seasons 2 and 3 were done through Generate. But after Season 3, we didn't do any more. Although we still, in the back of our plan here, have aspirations to do a 4th and final season, and maybe even a short film or a movie kind of spinoff. The show hadn't had new episodes in almost 3 years, and we get new fans on YouTube and Hulu and stuff all the time, and so we think there's still a little bit of a demand for a kick-ass female assassin, on the web.
Well, great. And I think you kind of covered this with Pink, kind of, sort of, but an earlier question. But, I mean, why did you decide to take that story of Pink and make it a web series versus just tying it together and, making a TV pilot, trying to pitch that, or trying to make another film?
Well, the story is sort of the same as it is today. One reason I'm drawn, and a lot of people are drawn to web series, and that is that there are no gatekeepers. You can go out and do it yourself, and whether or not you get a lot of views or make any money, that's another story. But it's cool just to be able to go out there and grab a camera and turn things around so quickly. Like with Pink, we conceived the idea, and we wrote the script around Natalie Raitano, since I had a relationship with her. We wrote the script in May, got everybody on board. We shot in June, and we released it in September of 2007. And so just almost a 3 or 4 month turnaround from inception to production, to post-production to release, which is, I can never do that with a feature film, even an indie film. And so I think that's part of what drew me to that. And then the idea, too, is one thing I've tried to do with my web series is play into topics that I like, but also that I think online audiences would like as well. And so doing an assassin story, or like with Continuum, a sci-fi story, or that kind of thing. With the WB, we did kind of a college drama with a twist, so to speak. And so that played into it a lot, too.
Now, what was Exposed about?
Exposed, which it's still online, it's WB.com. It's a what I would call a soapy thriller. It's about a college kid who is trying to hide his past. He ended up being, when he was a young child, in the Russian mob, and now he has escaped that past life and trying to make a new life in the U.S. going to college. And ultimately, one day he's in class and he gets a text message from someone that he doesn't know who it is, and they threaten to expose him and ruin his life. And so the story sort of follows his journey on trying to figure out who this is and why they're doing this to him.
Oh, okay.
How long did that run?
Well, it was a web series, and the way it was summer 2010, basically, is when that premiered. The way they released it, and everyone's still trying to figure this part out, they actually decided to release one episode. We did, I believe it was 16 episodes, and they decided to release one episode a day for basically 2 weeks. Or I guess actually the first day they released 2 or 3, and then they did one a day for 2 weeks.
Oh, wow. And
it was not just our series. There was 4 or 5 other series going at the same time. The idea, I guess, being that they would generate marketing and buzz with all the series to try to bring eyes to the WB.com. But yeah, that was a couple years ago.
Okay.
Okay.
And how did that marketing model seem to work?
Yeah, I almost think that'd be overkill, but
yeah, I was going to say, was it a bit of information overload for everyone, or did it actually bring more in than you expected?
Well, interestingly, and I was touching on this earlier, since this show was a completely studio show, we never really had access to the metrics per se. I mean, we got a little bit of feedback, and so I don't know exactly how it worked, but I'm a big believer, especially in the web space, of giving time to build an audience, because there's just, as you said, there's information overload, and there's just so many options out there. I think my personal opinion is, if I was releasing the show again, I wouldn't do it that way, because I found with Pink and then now with Continuum we've done it a totally different way. We can touch on that a little bit, but I like giving the audience a chance to find the show. And I think by doing one a week or so, you give people a chance to tweet it and Facebook about it, and other people find it. And then also something new is continually coming for 6 or 8 or 10 weeks, however long the run is.
Yeah.
All right, so you got those 2 web series, and then I know you did another web series. And now you did, and the main reason why we're here talking to you is about Continuum, your sci-fi web series. And you just touched on a little bit of how you released that a little differently. What's your marketing plan on how you're releasing Continuum?
Well, Continuum's been interesting because originally we were going to approach it and take it through more traditional means and go through some of the smaller digital studios that are out there that exist. But in the end, we decided just to do it on our own again, like we did with Pink, kind of go back to our roots. And so from that point of view, we could do whatever we wanted with it. And ultimately, what has worked best for us is a multi-tier distribution. What you hear and what we're trying to do called a freemium release. Initially, we did 3 preview episodes on Facebook last fall, 2011. And then we signed with an indie TV network, a new one called JTS, JTS.TV. And we did an exclusive deal with them for 3 months. And it's a subscription TV network online. It's sort of like Netflix meets HBO for web series. They curate and only accept, I think they have 13 or 14 shows on their site right now. And so for $3.99 a month, you get access to those shows, and you can watch them exclusively on JTS. Well, when our exclusive deal was over, our show is still on there. Then we decided to release it as a video on demand. There's 9 episodes in season 1. That's what's out right now. You can watch all 9 episodes back to back like a mini movie. And then on top of that, what we're doing right now is we're releasing it weekly on YouTube for free, but ad supported. We try to monetize the videos through ads. And so between all 3 of those, we're actually starting to see a little bit of financial return, which is not the reason necessarily that we're doing this, but it's nice. It
helps.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to pay back some of the money and it's also nice to try to figure out a method to where we can make a living doing. Narrative web series you guys probably know, it's very, very challenging to make a living off of these because they cost so much and take so much time. Versus being a YouTuber, which is great if you can be a personality on YouTube and knock out videos very cheaply, and then get great return on all the hits and stuff you get on YouTube. But long story short, it seems to be working for us to do a tiered release, and I think we're going to do the same thing for season 2, which will be out later this fall.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, you're the first web series to ever do a Facebook type of premiere or sneak peek. Do you think that was that a good idea? Are you going to repeat that again with the Facebook episode?
I think so. We did it for a couple reasons. One, we'd been promoting the show for a while, and it took a lot longer to get done than we'd originally planned because our visual effects are pretty intense for a no-budget show. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to give appreciation or thanks back to our Facebook fans, and at the same time start building our Facebook audience. And so that's one reason we did it. And I think it was successful. We can't remember off the top of my head. I think we grew our fan base by a third or fourth or so just over those 3 preview episodes over about a month-long period. But the problem with Facebook is there's really no way to monetize your content at all. It's really just for marketing, I guess would be the way I would put it at this point, at least as an independent. Now maybe the bigger companies and shows, I know since then a lot of shows have done that. I think some shows are running exclusively on Facebook. I'm not sure how they do that with their ads and such, but for us it works pretty well as a marketing tool.
Oh, great. Can you tell us a little bit about Continuum for those people that haven't watched it yet?
Yeah, like 99.99% of the web. No, we actually have a pretty good audience, but you know how it is.
It's hard to cut through all the clutter and get found.
Yeah, exactly. We're a needle in a haystack. But Continuum is a sci-fi thriller. It's a mystery. It's about a girl who wakes up on a spaceship, an adrift ship, and she wakes up alone, doesn't know where she is, who she is, or how she got there, and she's basically at the mercy of the ship's mysterious computer, which is sort of a HAL-esque 2001 type vibe, maybe an homage, if you will, in that respect. But the story itself is full of, again, mystery and action, and there's actually, as the show progresses, there's some romance because it turns out she's not actually alone. And so it kind of blends a lot of different genres, but ultimately it ties back to science fiction, which one thing that's cool, I think, too, is that science fiction actually in space on a ship. There's very few every show now seems to be apocalyptic. The world is, falling apart or destroyed or what have you, which I'm not saying that's not connected to our show a little bit, but the show, like Battlestar Galactica or what have you, takes place in space, and so I think a lot of people are digging that.
Yeah, it has some elements. It seems like I was always a huge Outer Limits fan, and so the person waking up alone on a ship and there's a mystery and they're kind of at the mercy of that. It kind of reminded me of what I really enjoyed about Outer Limits. Yeah,
there's all kinds of serialized pieces of other shows that I've been inspired by in there for sure. The only thing without this show is serialized, though. I do like to make that point.
Yeah.
So you can't really hop in and watch episode 6 and know what's going on. But the episodes, it is a web series, and the episodes are all about 5 minutes long, and so it's not a big time commitment. And right now, again on JTS, you can watch all 9 episodically, or on video on demand, you can watch all 9 back to back. I think it's 45-minute running time roughly. And then on YouTube, where we just released episode 6 yesterday, and that plays episodically there as well. So,
great. I'm just kind of curious, if you don't mind sharing, like in comparison to like video on demand, or in comparison to some of them, how's the video on demand numbers doing?
If you follow conversion rates, which is big in in e-commerce such, our conversion rate is about 6.5%. So that's pretty good. Ultimately, just like with web series in general, we have no marketing budget, and so our marketing has been word of mouth. I mean, we have a web, our website is where that's located, along with our Facebook page, and we're using a really cool service called Distrify that is really geared towards indie films, but they also support indie TV and indie web series and such. And other filmmakers should check into it a lot for their own projects, because it's a great system, and they pay you via PayPal. They're a British company, and you embed a player on your site, and then other people can embed that player on their site and make commissions. And they have a Facebook app, as I mentioned, and so it works really well in that regard, and it plays back pretty smoothly. It's streaming for the rentals. You can do rental, or you can do download to own. And at this point, I've just done the rental. But once we're going to release a DVD of season 1 this fall, and once that's out, I'll also do a download version. I didn't want to do a download before the DVD was done, because it would end up, in Pirate Bay, obviously. Actually, I have a Google notification set up for my show, and today there was someone out on a pirate site asking about where they could download the 9 episodes. It's pretty funny.
Now, there is a new TV show in Canada called Continuum.
Very familiar with it, yeah. It's funny. It's been a blessing and a little bit of a curse. It's really been more of a blessing for us, because lots of people have mistakenly come across our show and then ended up liking it. And so we've gotten a lot of free press that way, unintentional press. But then some people have been confused, for instance, on Facebook, and they think they're talking to the other show when they're talking to the people on our page, and they're asking about different seasons, and I mean, their season just wrapped on Sunday, and so every Sunday, whenever one of their shows, we would end up getting a bunch of posts on our page, and we'd have to say, wrong show, and one thing is some people have thought that we like are trying to piggyback off them and we stole their name, and we're like, well, we've been around since we premiered our teaser at Comic-Con in 2010, so
yeah.
we even heard of this show. This show just popped up this year, and so we're actually, I'd love to see it, but being in the U.S. we can't. It looks pretty interesting, but beyond the name, and there's a little bit of sci-fi in that show. The similarities really in there. You know, again, we're a sci-fi show set in space, and they're more of a, I think it's more of a time travel crime show.
It's an Earth-based.
Yeah. It's like it reminds me of an updated version of like Time Tracks. I don't know if you're familiar with that show.
No, but like Quantum Leap or something like that, maybe?
It's about...
I don't think they jump around. They just jumped once and then end up in a different time or something like that.
Unless something... I mean, we haven't watched...
Yeah, I don't know. We haven't really... But that was my impression. So, yeah, it's not really... They're not in outer space or flying around in ships that we can tell, so... Yeah,
so, again, we're fans of any sci-fi, and I'm fans of the show, and it's funny because their website is continuumtheseries.com, and we were going to take that a couple years ago, but I already had Pink the series, and so we decided to do it a little different. We did Watch Continuum, but on YouTube, Watch Continuum wasn't available for some reason. I can't remember why, and so we're Continuum the series on YouTube. So anyway, there is definitely some confusion. However, Melanie Merkosky, our lead actress, does not really look like Rachel. Is it Rachel Nichols? So it's funny when people confuse the two shows, but in the end, it's been good for us, seriously, because it's brought us a lot of press that we wouldn't have otherwise have gotten. So
pretty much any name recognition is going to be helpful.
Yeah, exactly. And since we're a sci-fi show, some of the fans have seemed to enjoy our show too.
Well, good. So as you said, it's in space. It's on a spaceship. So there's obviously going to be a lot of set construction work. I mean, what was it like trying to do a production where it was so, set production heavy?
Yeah, there was, and this was the largest endeavor from that perspective that I'd ever done. And my production designer, art director, great guy, Eric Whitney, has done all my movies and web series since 2004. He built this in his shop basically by himself because we had no money. And the set piece was huge. It was about 50 or 60 feet long and about 40 feet wide. And we're going to have some pretty cool behind-the-scenes videos once we release our DVD showing all this stuff. But it was really massive. And the interesting thing is, originally in the show, it was supposed to be a pod. It turned out the ship was so big, we ended up we called it a shuttle. But building the set was great, and we actually have saved several pieces just for posterity around our studio. We have a studio in Texas. But anyway, that was a huge endeavor. But beyond that, everything around it, instead of, obviously we didn't have the budget to build controls and interfaces and really cool stuff like you might see in, I don't know, Alien movie or even like an Avatar, obviously. And so everything you guys watched the show, right? Marx, I know you did.
Yes.
Yeah.
So everything, we did pretty much all the controls with visual effects, and so that has increased the amount of time it takes to, like the bridge, for instance, once you get to that part of the show, everything in there is done virtually, and so it makes it really tricky from a post-production point of view.
Yikes, yeah.
Time-consuming and expensive, and so, but it's been a lot of fun. But those two things together have made it a really beast of a show to put together with virtually no money. So,
well, it looks really good. The virtual controls and
it sounds like you could rely on our mantra. We'll fix it in post.
We have no buttons on this control panel. We'll fix it in post.
Yeah, we did do a lot of that. Thank goodness for motion tracking and After Effects and all the great tools that are available to filmmakers today. And then we actually shot the show on 2 7D DSLR cameras.
Oh, okay.
Against our better judgment, because doing chroma keying and stuff is really tricky with those cameras. But through a lot of, again, post-processing and denoising and such, we've been able to do a pretty good job.
Oh, good. Why is it tricky? Is it how the pixels?
The compression of the I don't want to get too technical here, but the codec, the way the camera shoots, it looks great, except when you're in lower light or you're pulling what we call pulling keys, and you're doing layers and you're doing a lot of color correction. It can get really, as you say, pixelated, or compression and noise and artifacting and blocking and all that stuff can happen.
Now, when you put it all together, Continuum equals about 41 minutes or so.
Season 1, right?
Yeah,
yep.
Season 1 does, which is pretty close to what a 1 hour episode of a show would with commercials.
Yeah, we definitely kind of planned it that way. Tried to, anyway.
Did you? I was wondering if you had. Is that so? You're leaving that possibility open in case someone's ever interested, maybe going to traditional television, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's shows. I think what's the biggest web series to ever make that leap was a Sanctuary.
Yeah.
And so we're definitely open to that. We haven't really pursued it, truth be told. We had some very minor talks with Sci-Fi Digital, but nothing really ever materialized there. They had we're friends with the guys who did the Mercury Men. I don't know if you're familiar with that one or not.
Yeah, we've talked to them before.
Yeah, Chris Pretzka,
mm-hmm.
and so and then the folks that did Reese, and so they both went from sort of indie shows and got put on Sci-Fi Digital. I don't know whether they're going to make the leap to TV or not. I don't think they are, but I don't know that for a fact. But at any rate, we're open to that kind of thing, and stranger things have happened. But we're also very happy to be. We didn't make the show to go to TV, but if that happened, it would be great if someone was interested. But again, we're really happy being in the web space, and that's actually how we structured the show. These little mini serialized episodes that have cliffhangers, but that also play together as one long movie, which was really tricky to make that work. I think we pulled it off. We're pretty happy with it in that respect.
Well, we enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So you got the two of us.
Yeah. No, thank you very much. Well, one thing I meant to say too, and you mentioned sound, but the post sound I think really puts us above a lot of other indie productions, because our composer Damon Criswell did. I mean, our score is. I think it's just epic. I love what he did. It's really big and very sci-fi, and we were modeling it. I wanted it to be like Muse meets. God, I knew that I was going to mess this up. What's the composer who did Moon? And he did. Golly, I'm blanking out all of a sudden.
Yeah, I don't remember his name off the top of my head.
Yeah, Clint Mansell. And so, anyway, I'm really happy with the score, and then the sound design and such is being done by a great guy named Matt Whitmire and a company here in town called NPS Studios. Anyway, I've always been a big proponent of really good sound, because I think you guys probably watch a lot of indie content. Lots of times, for whatever reason, they slack on the sound, and that can really make your show look a lot less professional for sure, and pull you out of the scenes and that kind of thing. So sound is a priority, and I think we tried to do as good a job there as we could too.
Yeah, I thought the sound was pretty solid. So.
Yeah, that's one of the things that people don't always take seriously, but that is one of the first things you notice when it goes horribly wrong. So.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's just it. I mean, you don't notice sound usually unless it's bad.
Yeah, so you really don't want people to go, oh, wow, that sound was awful. You want them to go, I didn't think about it, but you know what? It must have sounded great.
No, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. So, but anyway, I just wanted to throw that part in.
I think people are more tolerant of mediocre cinematography if the story's good. The story's got to be good.
Yeah.
But they have very low tolerance for bad sound.
I know, I do, because if I've tried watching stuff and the whole time I'm going, what did they say? What was that? I didn't catch it. What? And then you can't keep up. So yeah, it turned out really well.
And one thing that we did that's interesting too, because it's for the web. I mean, we mixed everything and did everything in 5.1 surround for our DVD. But ultimately, the life of the show is on the web, and it'll be on the web as long as it's around. And so we also mixed it, for a stereo mix for the web. And then lots of times I sit there and listen to it on my laptop, because a lot of people listen to it, on crummy laptop speakers, and so I just want to make sure it sounds good there as it does in a surround sound theater. So that can be kind of tricky.
Oh yeah, that is tricky. Well, cool. I'm glad you thought that far ahead for sound. So
yeah,
tried to.
You're an interesting creator in a way because you switch around genres quite a bit compared to some people. I think this would be your first sci-fi web series. So you started with I don't know what you would call Pink, like an action
dark comedy is what I call it. More dark comedy than anything.
And then you got Exposed, and I forgot what the other one was called.
The other one's called 88 Hits, and it's a mockumentary. And then Exposed was a thriller, and this one is a sci-fi thriller. I mean, I tend to get pigeonholed and with being kind of a drama thriller guy. Although my true love is comedy, which is kind of funny. But I do like the dramatic and the thriller stuff too. And I'm a huge sci-fi fan. I've never had the opportunity to do it. I've got another idea I want to do for a feature film. But I want to have a nice big budget to work with that one. We have season 2 of this coming out, and then we'll see where this goes. I'd love to do more of this as well. In season 2, you'll have to see what happens to know where the show goes, though. There could be some twists and turns there as well.
When do you think season 2 will be out?
I don't want to give an exact date, because every time I do that, I miss it. But the plan is roughly we're at the end of the YouTube run on season 1, which is about 3 or 4 more weeks. We're going to release the download version of season 1 and the DVD, and then that'll put us in about mid-September, and then mid to late October, maybe sneaking into November, we're going to release season 2. And we're not 100% sure where we're going to release it yet. We're probably going to do a similar path that we did with season 1, and that is starting off on the paid versions, and then releasing it out to the world for free later down the road. A little bit like the old, I guess they still do it, the feature films. It's in the theaters, and then it goes to DVD or VOD, and it goes to free TV down the road.
Well, now that you've made 4 web series, what do you think are you optimistic about the future web series? I mean, basically, it's hard to monetize, as we touched on. So do you think that's going to change soon, and how do you think that might change?
I've been pretty bearish on him for a while, and I actually was like, I'm not going to do another web series that I pay for myself until just recently. I mean, just ever since YouTube released their, I guess they call them their premium channels, the CPMs have started to go up. I've noticed even on Continuum, we used to make, beer money, on different things here and there, and now I've joked we're making wine money. So slow but surely, and we have a decent number of views, but not tons. I think our biggest episode has 40,000 views. Used to, like with Pink, I've got some episodes that have millions of views. That's just pretty rare now, except for like Epic Mealtime, those kind of shows. Narrative series are usually in the thousands of views. So, long story short, though, I'm actually kind of bullish on it now, especially with all the studios now that are getting involved. I hope it doesn't drown out the indie creators, but just like in the film business, the studio movies, the indie movies, the no-budget, the micro-budget films, everything kind of exists together. I think web series are going to be kind of the same space. Like Machinima tends to release all the big high-end web series that are based on video games or what have you. And like Bryan Singer has this brand new sci-fi series called H+. I don't know if you've seen or heard about that. You probably have.
Uh-huh.
So it's nice to see those guys get into the space. Although it's funny because they tend to think it's a brand new medium, and it is to them, but a lot of us have been banging around in it for 5 years or so,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm seeing more and more opportunities to monetize your content. I do think it's still really, really hard to monetize a narrative show, whether it's a sci-fi show in particular, because they're so complicated to make, at least to doing well, it's just hard to spend a decent chunk of money and be able to make it back on ads. So the combination of video on demand and ad-supported content, and then different subscription ideas out there, and then the Hulus of the world. If you do a multi-platform kind of release, I do think you can have some success. But the best way probably still is to have, if you want to go this route, is to have someone else pay for it, like a studio or someone. But for most indie content creators, that's just not an option.
Yeah.
Okay, and while filming Continuum, we always like to ask if there's any funny stories on set, because there's always goofs and things that happen. Is there any particular one that kind of stands out?
Not really anything goofy, except the interesting thing is the studio we shot in was very gracious to have us there, and they did it for a great deal, but it wasn't actually heated. It was a sound stage, but they mainly use it for music videos and such, and so not only was it not heated, and we shot in February, and we shot in Dallas, Texas, and it really gets cold here, and it especially did when we shot. It wasn't soundproof either, and so luckily our set had a roof on it, but we have some pretty funny behind-the-scenes videos where, everyone is literally freezing. Our lead actress, we have heaters around the set, and then she's wearing a shorts and like a tank top and throughout the whole show, and it's 40 degrees or something in there, and so it's kind of funny from behind the scenes point of view. You think of these shows or Hollywood behind the scenes, everybody's being pampered, and that's not the case at all here. But I guess if anything, that was pretty funny.
Space is cold.
Yeah, exactly, and that was the running joke throughout the whole show, is talking about is it cold in outer space? Can you hear me scream in outer space? Blah blah blah. Outer space joke you could think of, we told, because it was so freaking cold.
You're very experienced in web series, so if a lot of times we have people listening to our show who are filmmakers who may be thinking about, journeying into this new frontier, what advice would you give them, things you've learned to do and not to do for a web series?
I would say, ultimately, and we've touched on it all throughout the interview, you really need to have a marketing plan in place, maybe even more so than the show itself. I know that sounds strange, but there's so many excellent shows that never get seen. So I think the marketing is of utmost importance. There's the old adage, and it is true, that the cream will rise to the top, and you produce something really good and people will find it, and that is true. But in a way, I think the web in general, but web series are sort of becoming like indie musicians, because imagine how many times you've gone to a bar or something and you see a guy playing and you're like, I can't believe they don't have a record deal or what have you. I think it's the same, getting to be the same, because there's so many talented people out there, and now anyone can create a show and put it on YouTube. But just because it's out there, people won't come see it. And I guess that's what I've learned, and that wasn't always my best part. And I'm still more interested in making the shows, but as an indie creator, you have to wear so many different hats, and one of them absolutely is marketing and advertising. And so having a good plan with that up front is really important.
Great. I think that's pretty solid advice.
Yeah.
Of course, I didn't say what to do, because I'm still figuring that part out.
All right, great. I think so. Continuum. How about you tell everybody where they can find it?
Okay. Yeah. Great. Thanks. It's our hub site, our official site is watchcontinuum.com. We have links there to everything, but right now it's also on YouTube. YouTube.com/Continuum the series, and then we have a pretty active Facebook page, and that's Facebook.com/Continuum TV. And then, of course, we're also on Twitter. But I would say watchcontinuum.com is sort of the hub, and that's where you can find info on the video on demand and links to everything else. I hope people will seek out good sci-fi stories, character-based stories on the web. And there's a lot of them out there, and I think they deserve to be seen. All right, well, guys, thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
You have a good evening.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye.
Where are we headed?
Unfortunately, our flight plan is not accessible.
What does that mean, not accessible?
Are you being sarcastic now?
No.
It means the ship is lost.
Okay, well, thanks to Blake Calhoun for agreeing to that interview. Wish him luck on Continuum in the second season, and hopefully many more seasons after that.
Now, before we wrap things up, we do have some news hot off the virtual presses. And first up, Carolyn DeVerna, which is how it's pronounced in the English-speaking world. I'm not going to pretend to know how to do the French-Canadian. But she has signed aboard NBC's new serial killer drama Hannibal from Pushing Daisy's writer Brian Fuller. Now, the two had previously worked together on the short-lived, and in my opinion, way too short-lived, Wonder Falls, in which Fuller was the writer and creator, and she was the star. Now, this time around, rather than answering the call of inanimate objects who demand she do their bidding and righting wrongs and helping people in quirky and comedic awkward situations, this role will take on a slightly heavier tone, as DeVerna will be playing a consultant with the FBI's division that profiles serial killers. Hannibal is based on Thomas Harris's best-selling novels and is expected to premiere mid-season with 13 episodes. And this series will mine the background elements from his book, Red Dragon. Now, the series will center on the infamous cannibal Dr. Lecter, Mads Mikkelsen, who works with FBI profiler Will Graham, Hugh Dancy, to solve crimes. The series takes place in the pre-Silence of the Lambs days, before his true nature was exposed. Now, David Slade, who has directed features such as 30 Days of Night and the Twilight Saga Eclipse, and episodes from NBC's dramas Awake and AMC drama Breaking Bad, he will direct the first episode. And in addition to DeVerna, whom I just adore her and everything I've seen her in, they're also going to have Lawrence Fishburne has joined the cast as Jack Crawford, a leader on the FBI Behavioral Sciences Unit. So I think that's going to be, I'm really excited to see that. I like the first one. I haven't really gotten into the other movies, but I don't know, this TV series seems really interesting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it. Well, one of Star Trek's perhaps sexiest actresses is heading to Thor, the Dark World. It's the Borg Queen herself.
Oh, yeah.
Actress Alice Craig, right? Did I pronounce her? Krieg? In case you don't know, I can't pronounce last names.
The sexy Borg Queen. I mean, even I admit she's pretty sexy.
I call her Borg Queen. That's all I call her. Has landed a role in the upcoming sequel Thor: The Dark World. According to CBM, during this weekend's Star Trek Las Vegas convention, the actress who appeared as the Borg Queen on Star Trek First Contact and the Star Trek Voyager two-part series finale Endgame, revealed she had landed a small role on the film. Now, filming for The Dark World is set up to start later this month. And actually, ex-Doctor Who star Christopher Eccleston,
yeah, I like him,
confirmed is playing, now this is an affair because these names are crazy, Malekith the Cursed and ruler of
Svartalfheim.
We'll go with that.
Just say it with authority and they'll never know.
It's so much easier to pronounce when you read it, in the comic books and stuff, and then you're like, oh, I have to actually pronounce this word?
Yeah.
So what small role could the former Borg Queen play? Well, speculations are that I know. Speculations are that she could be playing Alphys, the Queen of the Dark Elves, and
that realm.
Ruler of the realm.
Now, she did confirm that she was in the movie in a minor role and that she wouldn't be very recognizable in the film, which likely means prosthetics and heavy makeup, which could fit the character's appearance.
Mm-hmm. So Thor: The Dark World, which I'm definitely looking forward to, will smash into theaters, or maybe I should say hammer home into theaters.
Maybe, yeah.
On November 8th, 2013.
Hugh Jackman discussed the tone of next year's The Wolverine in an interview with Total Film. He said it won't be a flat-out sequel to its 2009 predecessor. Instead, it will have more of a self-contained story. And this is a quote from Hugh Jackman: "We've deliberately not called it Wolverine 2 because we want it to be placed and feel like a standalone picture," he said. "With an all-new cast and setting it's in Japan, it's going to give us a whole new visual aesthetic." Now, despite some roadblocks, the Wolverine is filming in Australia, and Jackman is excited. Another quote from him, "I'm just really glad it's happening," he said. "For a while it's felt like a rocky ride, and I think it's the best idea we've had and the strongest script we had, and that now we really have an opportunity to make something really great." The Wolverine opens in theaters July 26, 2013.
I want to say slashes in the theaters.
Well, that would work, yeah. So, do you think the Wolverine can redeem the franchise in the eyes of the fans? I didn't really realize that Hugh Jackman as Wolverine rocks. I don't really see any redemption.
They had a lot of negative feedback on the first Wolverine movie. Not him and the X-Men, or not even him, just the movie.
Yeah, the movie did have some issues, but I don't know. I mean, he's such a strong character, and Hugh Jackman's such a strong actor that I think maybe I'm just remembering all the good parts.
Now, why did the last X-Files movie fail?
Oh, let us count the ways.
In an interview with Collider, Duchovny, who stars in the movie as Fox Mulder,
yes,
said the standalone effort failed because it was released in the summer, but it wasn't a summer movie. Quote, "Unfortunately, with the last one, they didn't spend the money to compete in a summer fashion, and they brought it out in the summer. It should be a summer film. It should be an action film. But the last one we made was not. The last one we made was a dark, contemplative, small, $25 million film. It was basically an independent film. When you come out against Batman, it's not going to happen. You're not going to be sold as an independent film, and you're not going to compete against Batman with $25 million. Now, Duchovny said he still hopes for a third movie, but apparently there is little movement on that front. Well, what do you think? Was that the reason why it didn't do so well? Or is it time to close the case on the X-Files?
That was not why it didn't do well. I am a huge X-Files fan from the beginning, memorized practically every episode at one point in time, and I think the writing wasn't there in this last movie. I really felt like it seemed like a 1 hour episode that they just stretched out to make a movie. And I don't know. I mean, I like I said, a huge X-Files fan. I would probably go see any X-Files movie that was made. But I think the weakness was really more in the writing, because with a cult fan base like that, if it was a strong enough movie and a strong enough script, it really could compete in its own way at $25 million, against that. Because look at Kevin Smith and look at all these others that, they got cult followings that even though they have smaller budgets, there's still, there's going to be an audience there. So anyway, that's how I thought about it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Whatever you think.
Unless they're going to wrap up the Alien Armageddon, then I don't care.
Yeah, losing track of the ending was kind of a letdown. Anyway, going on to another show, Doctor Who. Every Who fan is eagerly awaiting news on the new season of Doctor Who. I know we are. We do have some titles for the next season to evoke our imaginations. Episode 4 and 5 are The Power of Three and The Angels Take Manhattan. And so, who knows what these titles could mean.
Angels Take Manhattan is kind of a weird title.
Yeah, it's odd if they're going to be in Manhattan.
I would think it's Weeping Angels, one of the really popular villains, but I don't see why you would give it such a comedic title if that's them, because they're not comedic.
Well, they kind of watered him down, I thought.
Yes,
it's
like the Voyager effect on the Borg.
Yeah, they're suffering the Borg effect, I think.
I don't know. I'm looking forward to it either way. I've heard, they're going to lose. Well, I don't know if I should do spoilers or not, but there's going to be some casting changes for the companions. So,
there's always they go through companions like socks. So, but I love Doctor Who, and so far
sometimes you lose some, sometimes you throw some away. No.
That's true. I don't know. I've really enjoyed the restart of the Doctor Who series, and all the Doctors, and really all of the companions have been really great.
Yeah, it's been great. It was such a great British sci-fi show for so many years. It was great to see it come back so strong. Yeah,
it only worries me when I see Angels Take Manhattan. I hope they don't try to move in the direction of Americanizing Doctor Who like they did Torchwood, because that didn't work for me.
Yeah, it didn't work out quite so well. I think you either got to be American or you got to be British, otherwise you kind of lose your identity a little bit for the show.
Well, yeah,
just for,
having that big of a shift after so long, just, I don't know, it's a hard sell.
Or something. I don't know what happened to Torchwood. It's going to be a case study. What happened the last
we could actually have a whole episode talking about that. Moving on.
All right, well, NBC is looking for some new comedy to add to their schedule, and they've looked at the world of supervillains for a new series that just entered development. The show's called Hinch and is based on a comic book that follows a down-on-his-luck average Joe who starts doing temp work for supervillains to make ends meet.
Huh.
It's an interesting premise for a series from a very quirky comic book. The series is being written by Alexandra Cunningham, whose previous TV credits include Prime Suspect, Fastlane, and Desperate Housewives. So what do you think? Would this be a show that you would like to watch?
I'm curious. I don't know anything about Prime Suspect or Fastlane, and frankly, I wasn't really into Desperate Housewives. But
you liked the first season.
First season that's one of those shows that one season was enough. But I don't know. I'm really curious about this. I kind of like the offbeat, quirky. As someone who is a huge fan of the live-action Tick and Wonder Falls and all these other kind of quirky shows. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think Ian actually said something in the chat room. Biggest issue was that the whole film got leaked a week or so before it premiered. Stars wanting to extend what was a 5-hour series to a 10-hour series. What happened to Torchwood? Yes.
Yeah, that's just the beginning of what happened to Torchwood. But my opinion is they took a wrong turn at the Children of Earth. So they ruined Jack for me, Captain Jack, and then they just really made it. They kept the name Torchwood, but bringing it to America just changed it too much.
Well, it took it away from your group in Britain, tracking down and saving the world from alien threats. Yeah, and went to, here's some leftover people from the team who suddenly get drafted by American people because of a vast conspiracy.
And I think they cared more about the special effects than they did the story.
Maybe so. Well, I think they stretched it out too long is one of the big things, too.
Yeah, Ian's right about that.
I'm a fan. I mean, I like how the British do sometimes their stories where they do keep them a little more condensed, their season arcs. Sometimes, but... And
they are a lot braver than American shows are about having turnover in their cast as well.
Yes.
So, in American shows, you can go, well, I know he's going to live because they're not going to kill the main character off.
Or will they?
In Great Britain, you don't know that.
You don't know. So that's pretty much it for the major news of recent, except that Grimm did premiere yesterday.
And we have not seen it, so we're not going to be able to talk about it, but I know I'm excited to watch it. Mm-hmm. And I'm really excited. The show's really grown on me, and I absolutely adore the Blue Bot.
He really makes a big difference with the show. If he wasn't in the show, I don't know if I would care about season 2 as much.
Yeah.
Although the whole thing with the Grimm's mom and stuff, there's a little bit of mythology they're building that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and I love that they take mythology, but they've built their own, really, because they've come up with the names for the creatures and they've done those things, but I love how it's rooted in old world German, even though they've made it their own, and I've got a soft spot for pretty much all things German.
Well, all right, well, that's it for our 9th episode of Genretainment. Before we go, we just want to let you know about our web series Reality on Demand, which you can find at realityondemandseries.com.
So that's it for today. Thank you, and join us in 2 weeks on Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Central, and we'll be back with Gen Con coverage and 1 or 2 more new interviews. So until then, thank you. Au revoir.
Adios. Hopefully we'll get a lot of good interviews from Gen Con.
Yes.
Blog Talk Radio, where millions of hosts and listeners gather.